I have a bold prediction about the Timberwolves for next season. There's probably going to be a lot of people that think I'm crazy for saying this, but here it goes. I think the Timberwolves are going to be in the playoffs next year. Okay, it's probably not what you were expecting to hear, so first, I'm going to prove why this is in fact a bold prediction, and then I'm going to defend my prediction. When I say Timberwolves, there's one player that comes to the front of my mind. Think about the history of the team, consider every year of their existence, and think about one player that stands out in skill and popularity from all others to wear the Minnesota jersey. I hope the player you're thinking of is Kevin Garnett. I hope we can all agree that Kevin Garnett is one of the greatest to ever play the sport. I mention him right now because his time on the Timberwolves is the only time the team has ever had any success. The Minnesota Timberwolves have been around since the season ending 1989, meaning they've completed 28 full NBA seasons. Of these 28 seasons, only 8 of them have ended in an appearance in the playoffs. In all 8 of those years, Kevin Garnett was on the roster, and those 8 years were all consecutive. They were in the playoffs every year from the seasons ending 1997 to 2004, but no others. My point is that the Timberwolves just can't seem to get it together. They've had good players come and go, but it took someone as special as Kevin Garnett to even get them into the playoffs. And once they were there in those 8 years, they didn't make much of it. By far, the most success the team has ever had was in the season ending 2004 when they won 58 games in the season and took the conference finals to 6 games. Most teams look back at their best years and see championships, or at the very least a couple of finals appearances. But for the Timberwolves, losing in the conference finals in 6 games is the best they have to look back on. In the years before their 8-year playoff run, the most wins they've had in a single season is 29. In the years after their playoff years, the most wins they've had is 44, but that was 1 year all the way back in 2005. Since then, they've not had a winning season, including their last season that ended in 31 wins, which is actually their best season of the last 3. So the team has had basically no success in over 10 years. They've even had Kevin Love on their team for 6 of these years, and he wasn't able to do much as far as helping the team succeed. And this was the Kevin Love from before, not the one we've grown to know as part of the Cleveland team. This is the big numbers, big role on the team Kevin Love. Just consider this. In 2011, he was an all-star for the first time, pulling down 15.2 rebounds a game and scoring over 20 points. You would expect that with somebody on the team putting up those insane numbers that they would win a lot of games, but not the case. They only won 17 games that year. Kevin Love's entire Timberwolves career can be summarized as good stats, few wins. So when you put all this together, the fact that they've never even competed in the finals, haven't been in the playoffs in the last 13 years, haven't had a winning record in 12 despite having some talent on the team, and coming off 31 wins last season, I'd say my prediction of them making the playoffs next year is pretty bold. Now let me tell you why I think this is going to happen. I have 3 main reasons: Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, and most importantly, Jimmy Butler. I don't think I have to convince you that Jimmy Butler is going to be a big plus to the team, but I think he's going to help them even more than most people realize. For one, just look at Jimmy Butler's improvement. I love to point out when a player has experienced significant improvement, because in those players there's no telling what heights they can achieve. The sky really is the limit. And Jimmy Butler is one of those players, evidenced by the fact that he has improved his scoring and assist numbers in each of his 6 years in the NBA. Just look at his rookie season compared to his most recent and tell me this isn't one of the biggest improvements in the NBA. He went from barely making the cut of being in the league to being one of the most talented players out there. The single most improved season was probably the one ending 2015, when he first became an All-Star and actually won the NBA's award for Most Improved Player. It's clear to see that Jimmy Butler gets a little better every year, and considering the fact that he's now at 24 points per game and one of the best players out there, I can only imagine the heights he can achieve next year on the Timberwolves. It'll be interesting to see if the improvement continues, but based on the past 6 years, the safe bet is that it will. Maybe even a little MVP talk, who knows? Not to mention the leadership role he'll likely be assuming in Minnesota. Last year, their star players were both very young. The team was in need of an experienced player to help lead the team, and Jimmy Butler fills that need perfectly. Going on his 7th year and filling that leadership role in Chicago for the past few years, even when Derrick Rose was still on the team, Butler was the main guy in Chicago. And going back to their need for experienced players, they've also added Jeff Teague and Taj Gibson to the roster for next year, who are both significant players that could bring their experience to the team in a helpful way. Now let's look at some of their more inexperienced yet promising players. First up, Andrew Wiggins. This is a good guy to have on your team. First overall pick for the Cavaliers in the 2014 draft, but quickly traded to the Timberwolves for Kevin Love. Obviously, Kevin Love was the better player at the time, but the Timberwolves were making moves for the future. Cleveland was ready to make their championship run right away, so they had the need for immediate talent. Minnesota was staging a championship run for later, so they took the player with the higher future potential. Well, we're in the future, and we may be about at that point where some teams would prefer Wiggins over Love. Wiggins is going to be starting his 4th year, and he too has shown general improvement each year, specifically in scoring. He's now up to 24 points per game. That is very likely to go down with the addition of Butler, but it shows that he can do it. He too has demonstrated improvement, and has proven that he could be a major contributor to the team. Next up, Karl Anthony Towns. Only 2 years in and is already one of the best centers in the league. Between his 2 years, he's raised his scoring by almost 7 points while maintaining the same shooting percentage. Plus, he's a center that can shoot, which is always a plus in today's game. Last year, he was 83% from the free throw line and 37% from the three, while attempting and making 3 times more than the previous year. Same as his 2 teammates, he's demonstrated tremendous improvement. Wiggins and Towns are both first picks, both winners of the Rookie of the Year award, and between the two have only missed 1 game in 5 combined playing years. So it's going to be nice for Jimmy Butler to play with somebody who's probably not going to miss too many games. All 3 of these guys can score. Last year they all averaged well over 20 points per game. When combined with some of these experienced role players, they make a well-rounded team with high potential. Finally, a good combination of experience and youth. Next year is their time to strike and finally put an end to the jokes and earn that playoff spot. Honestly, just looking at the team, I would predict even more success than a simple playoff spot, but looking at their history and the fact that they're in the Western Conference makes me afraid to predict anything more. Just think that they're probably not better than Golden State, the Spurs, the Rockets, or OKC, meaning that it's not likely for them to place above any of them in the season standings, which would place them somewhere between 5th and 8th place, meaning they would probably be forced to play one of those 4 teams in the first round. I just don't see them beating any of those teams in the playoffs. So you're hearing it here first. My prediction for the 2018 playoffs is the Timberwolves will lose in the first round, but still take it as a success. I would also like to say that they have potential for the future. They have 2 very promising, very young players, and a group of experienced players that still have some good years left. Jimmy Butler is only 27, but their future is uncertain. Wiggins is only signed through the next year, Towns only for 2 more years, and Jimmy Butler has a player option for the 3rd year. The team doesn't have many long-term commitments. The Timberwolves could potentially look completely different after 2 years. This unit does look like it could be an actual championship contender in a few years, especially if their core players continue getting better. But who knows if they'll all still be together at that point. The Timberwolves are an odd team, a long history of disappointment, but right now they finally have something happening. How good they will be or how long it will last, I have no clue. but you'd be crazy to look at this roster and say there's not potential there. I would like to see them succeed next season, and considering all the factors, if they make it to the postseason, then I'm calling that a success. Not all teams can be the Spurs and make it every year, so for the Timberwolves, this would be a big deal. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Timberwolves for next season. It's apparent they've been trying to make some sort of run, but have they done enough, or are they going to continue to fall short? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching. If you like this video and want to see more in a similar style, be sure to subscribe by clicking the logo so you know when I upload a new one.